So the defending champion, Annemiek van Vleuten, looking for that 4th GC title here for Team Movistar. This is her final season as a pro. Can she go out with a bang and take the Vuelta, the Giro and the Tour? We know that she would want that one. This is the rain that the riders have been dealing with today. Look at the water just collecting at the bottom there. This was Georgia Baker starting her ride. The race was actually delayed for some time. And this, I think when you look at this and you look at where Georgia actually finished, she sits in 6th at the moment. That's fairly remarkable as well.
It is, and I think it'll be a case of what if riders that had to go out and try and compete in these conditions. You can see that the road is absolutely treacherous. You know, it's almost like a river, the rain washing across the roads now, even a little bit of hail there. So that's why the race was neutralised. It was deemed too unsafe for these riders. They had around a 15-minute break to let this storm, this rain cloud pass. That's why we saw some of the main riders go off early. It was quite unpredictable, the weather, and I think that made it quite hard for the teams to decide when their key GC contenders were going to go off. You can see the commissaire just stopping the race at this point, and this is where the break started to let the rain again pass. But it's a tough one, isn't it, trying to call when these riders will go off and give them the best opportunity for, you know, their best ride out there today.
Georgia Baker was already on her way at this point. As we said, this puts her ride into perspective, because also 46.181 kilometers an hour in these conditions on these roads for Georgia Baker.
She's a rider, she's a track rider. It's absolutely perfect, this distance for the track riders, and I think that's why we're seeing Letizia Paternoster sitting in the top step, because she's a track rider. She's won World Cups before on the track in the 3-kilometer individual pursuit. She knows her capacity, she knows the power that she can hold and sustain for this amount of time. Again, the track riders tend to be very technically good on a bike, so they'll be able to carry the speed through the corners. So like you say, it puts this ride into perspective that she's still sitting so high in the rankings so far, having had to, you know, ride in these conditions ultimately.
And Jayco AlUla, if we look back to last year, they won this time trial with Kristen Faulkner last year. They're another team that just, again, whether that comes from the Aussie system that the team has kind of emerged out of, in terms of leaving sort of no stone unturned in terms of their aerodynamics and their setup and all that research that riders like Georgia would have had with that Aussie track team.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll be able to tap into the resources of the AIS, the Australian Institute of Sport, as well. I know they work quite closely with them, with their positions. They would have had them finalised by the track squad, and then they can transfer that then onto their time trial bike. Georgia Baker actually finished 2nd in the prologue in the Giro last year as well, so it just shows what sort of rider she is. And again, I think she'll finish today thinking, what if she had the opportunity to race in the dry weather? Where could she have come? But absolutely, they're a squad that you know, they look at those marginal gains, the ways in which that they can improve their performance alongside obviously their physical power that they'll all be working on with personal coaches and the like. But they are one of those teams that we know try and get everything right.
And of course, like a lot of Brits, or they grow up on the track. She's won 4 world track titles from junior, you know, upwards in terms of team pursuit and scratch and those sort of races. So she went 3rd at this point. So if you are just tuning in, we're looking at some recorded pictures of a little bit earlier on. Georgia Baker coming in and currently sitting in 6th spot. Letizia Paternoster is still at the top of the leaderboard. The race has been paused again because of the rain. And we're just seeing a lot of discussion going on here.
You can see images. It's Martin Vestby, the director sportif of the Jayco AlUla squad, husband of Emma Johansson, obviously the former Swedish rider who was one of the best female cyclists in her era, just discussing how they move forward, I guess, with this race.
It's going to be a difficult one, isn't it? How have you ever been in this situation when you were a pro?
Good question. I don't think I've ever had a race stopped in a time trial. I can see Lars Boom there as well, the director sportif of SD Works. These are pictures from earlier with Marianne Vos starting. No, I don't believe I have been in this situation before, but it must be really tough for the organisers, for the director sportifs to try and resolve this kind of issue when it comes to the weather and safety. And obviously then it makes it quite almost unfair for the riders that have had to tackle these conditions versus the riders that will ride in the dry. But again, that's what you've got to try and decide when you're talking with your coaches, the directors earlier in the day when they set the kind of the precedent and when the riders are going to go off.
So Marianne Vos has won this race on 3 occasions, 2011, 2012 and 2014. 32 Giro stage wins. Quite a different rider now, you would say, or the way the sport has it kind of evolved around her. Was that fair to say now?
Yeah, I think it's more of that in terms of the way the sport has changed rather than Marianne Vos herself. In terms of her physicalities as a bike rider, she's always been such a well-rounded bike rider, but I think now we're seeing a lot more mountainous stages in the women's peloton, and also the riders being able to really be specific in terms of what kind of rider they are. I think if you only look at maybe 5 years ago, even when I was racing as a female bike rider, it worked in your favour to be an all-rounder. You're more likely to win more bike races if you were that kind of all-rounder that could sprint at the end of a tough day, and that was a rider like Marianne Vos. But now it's more, we're seeing these specialities, which I think is brilliant. You're seeing riders being able to really target becoming a pure sprinter or a pure mountain climber, or a GC rider or all-rounder. So yeah, Marianne Vos, one of the greatest, or no, the greatest of all time, of course, the GOAT that we call her. But again, I think she and her team will be going for stage victories, which is what we've seen from the past couple of years.